Hey, In2Picklers. Tony coming to you today from Tampa. I want to talk to you today about stroke mechanics. I want to talk about the backswing, the point of contact, and the follow-through. I do want to focus at the end of the video on the follow-through and its importance to the stroke. There's been some conversation online in response to some of the videos that we've published about the follow-through regarding whether the follow-through is an important part of the stroke or just some kind of afterthought after the ball left the paddle. It's an area that I think would help benefit players to understand the follow-through and to make sure that their follow-through is a nice, consistent part of their stroke. So I'm going to do a couple of things today to kind of demonstrate the importance of the follow-through to the stroke. So let's get into it. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, then you're not connected with the latest pickleball news and strategy and concepts that'll help you improve your game. To stay on top of all of those and more, make sure you subscribe to our channel. Thanks. Pickleball stroke has three parts. It has a backswing part, which is the part before you hit the ball. It has the point of contact when you make contact with the ball, and then it has the follow through, which is after you make contact with the ball when you finish your stroke. In order to have a good pickleball stroke, you need to think about those three components and make sure that you're doing the right thing with all of them. Our position on the backswing in pickleball is that you need a very short or actually no backswing on some strokes because the backswing just introduces the possibility for errors in the stroke without adding more to the stroke. I'll link to some videos above and below regarding the backswing. You can watch those videos so you can understand why we don't think the backswing is that important. So this part of the stroke. The second part of the stroke mechanic is the point of contact. At the point of contact, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're hitting the ball in front of you. You want to make sure you're keeping your eye on the ball, and you want to make sure that the paddle angle or your paddle face angle is heading in the direction you want the ball to go. So for instance, if I'm going to hit a serve and I want it to go that way, my paddle face should be roughly in this direction as I make contact to make sure the ball goes in that direction. If my paddle face is in this direction, obviously the ball is not going to travel in that direction when I make contact. Same thing if I'm trying to hit a lob, for instance, I want my paddle face to be open to hit the lob. If my paddle face is like this when I make contact, I won't be able to execute the lob. Now we get to the third and what has become sort of a controversial subject on some of the posts online, which involve the follow through. So that's the part where, again, I've made contact with the ball now and I'm finishing the stroke with the follow through. The suggestion that is made by those that don't think the follow through is a critical part of the stroke is that once I make contact with the ball and the ball has left the paddle, that any movement of the paddle from that point on is not really an important part of the stroke. We disagree with that for a number of reasons. The main reason being that the stroke, you can't separate the follow through from the stroke. In other words, I can't take this part of the stroke and then somehow eliminate the need to follow through to finish the stroke. Some of the posts talked about a concept of like residual energy or residual momentum, and that made a lot of sense to me. So if I'm hitting a serve, for instance, and I have to transfer a lot of energy into the ball because I'm sending it from baseline to middle of the service box, then what I want to do is I want to make sure that as I hit the ball, I finish. While my focus may not be the finish itself, I need to have the finish in order to complete the serve. And understanding that and making sure that the paddle follows along the path that I want to hit the ball is an important way to improve your strokes and to become more consistent. To illustrate how follow through affects a shot, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically take the same shot 4 times with 4 different follow throughs. Each time I'll simply toss the ball to the same point of contact and then I'll execute the stroke. So you can see when I pull the paddle from left to right, I have the paddle in one spot, I'm pulling the paddle left to right is my follow through. What I'm doing is the ball is naturally bouncing off the paddle, so it has a natural energy from dropping onto the paddle anyway, so it's basically rebounding off the paddle upward some. But you can see the ball is traveling from left to right off the paddle because that's the way my follow through is moving. The face of my paddle remains up, but the motion of my paddle from left to right moves the ball from left to right. Now let's look at what it looks like when I don't move the paddle at all. So there you can see by having no follow through or taking the follow through out of the stroke, I'm not doing anything to the ball. The ball's simply reacting off the paddle, so just bouncing off the paddle. The energy that the ball has just from falling into the paddle is bouncing off and then just bouncing 2 or 3 times and that's it. That's no follow through. Now let's see what happens when I pull the paddle away. There you can see how the follow through affects the energy of the ball. What's happening there is the energy that the ball has as it falls, which you saw when the paddle was neutral or didn't move, is now being absorbed by the paddle moving backwards as the follow through. So the follow through there, the negative follow through, is having an effect on how the ball's traveling. This last one, we'll see how the ball travels when I basically have a short follow through up, which is where I want to hit the ball. So there you can see how my follow through, which is a short little up follow through, makes the ball travel up. So the same shot every time, my paddle's in the same spot, the ball's being delivered the same way every time to where the paddle is. What's changing another 4 times is my follow through, left to right, static, down and up, and every time it affects the shot. So I think that shows that the follow through does have an impact on how the ball ultimately, and where the ball ultimately ends up going and how it ends up getting there. 2 other ways that you can think of how the follow through impacts a stroke. One is the difference between a short dink, or what we call a dink, and a long dink, which is the current name for the third shot. In a short dink, I'm basically taking a short follow through like this. So I'm basically finishing like this. That's my follow through on a dink at the kitchen. Now when I'm back at the baseline and I'm trying to hit a third shot, my follow through is going to be longer. The reason my follow through is longer is because I have to deliver more energy into the ball, which requires a longer follow through, or results in a longer follow through, depending on how you want to look at it. But the result is the same. In other words, I have a longer follow through, a longer throw, if you will, from the baseline than I do from the kitchen. Let's look at a point here so we can see how the follow through changes from a third shot at the baseline to the kitchen. Here you're going to see Scott Morse, who's serving the ball, is going to execute a third shot here. Watch his follow through here, almost up to his face level there as he finishes the follow through. Right afterwards, you're going to see a dink here, a kitchen dink, and look how much shorter it is. It's about maybe a third, roughly about a third to 40% of his prior stroke. So you can see the difference there in the follow through. Here we get an opportunity to look at shaping the shot with the follow through. It's the same shot that we looked at before. What you're going to see here is you're going to see that when Scott makes contact with the ball, so his paddle angle at the point of contact makes it look like it's going to go to this yellow dot here at the end of the arc. That's the way it looks from the stroke. But watch what he does with the paddle after contact with the follow through. He turns the paddle outward towards the sideline there, the out of bounds there, making look like the ball is going to go along this blue line towards that blue dot. And what you're going to see here is effectively that's where the ball ends up landing. Ends up landing at the spot where he followed through, not at the spot where it looked like it was going at the point of contact. What's important about this is understanding that your follow through can be used to help shape your shots and to help improve your game. Another area where the follow through is critical is in the serve. What happens sometimes, people get the service yips, so the serve ends up going all over the place. What's happening a lot of times is that the service motion or the follow through of the serve is curving away from the intended target. So again, say that if this was the baseline and I'm trying to serve in this direction, if my follow through is in that direction to the service box that I'm aiming for, I'm more likely than not to hit the ball there. If instead of keeping my follow through consistent to the point where I want the ball to go, I start to pull the paddle one way or the other. Again, could be at the point, and then after I'm making contact, I start curving that paddle. What will happen is the ball will go left or the ball will go right out of the service box. By keeping that follow through consistent, what will happen is that ball will end up going in the service box. By improving your follow through and your understanding of the follow through, you can certainly improve your strokes. Good luck out there.